As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Tom Ficklin Show. My name is Gary Tinney, and I'll be sitting in for Mr. Ficklin today. Today's guests are from the Fellowship Place located on 441 Elm Street in New Haven, Connecticut. What I'd like to do is just I'd like you to introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Guerrera, and I'm the Executive Director of Fellowship Place. It's a pleasure to be here today with Gary and all the listeners.
Thank you. And Sandy?
Good morning. My name is Sandy Sibilio. I'm the Director of Career Services here at Fellowship Place and happy to be here.
Thank you.
And my name's Will Sherman. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Directors of Fellowship Place, and I'm in my 8th year as a member of the Board of Directors.
Wonderful. So what I would like to do, and I've spoken to numerous people about this, is just to speak to the great services that the Fellowship Place provides. I retired from the fire department. I was located right around the corner, responded to that location on numerous occasions, but didn't know the extent of the great work that the Fellowship Place provided. So I thought it'd be very important that we tell a story and let folks know what what the Fellowship Place has done for over past 60 years. I'm going to start off with a series of questions. My first questions, Mary, if you could just tell us a little bit about the program, the services provided at the Fellowship Place.
So Fellowship Place works with adults who are living with a serious mental illness or a substance abuse problem or a co-occurring substance abuse problem and a mental illness. We do not provide any clinical services. So by that, I mean, we don't have doctors or psychiatrists or nurses on staff. We're providing all of the rehabilitation and supportive services that people living with a serious mental illness need to have a full and productive life. So the services we provide really are like an anchor for people in between their appointments with their doctors. We have deeply and permanent supportive housing. We have a day program, which is commonly called the Clubhouse, which is open 7 days a week and offers not only meals, but a very wide range of activities that help people develop social connections, structure their day, and build their independent living skills. We have career services, which Sandy will talk about. Those include some job training in the food services industry, supported education, and supported employment services, where we are helping people who, because they became ill, never were able to finish school or have much of a job history, and we're helping them deal with the barriers that they now face as adults as they're trying to get a job or finish their education. And lastly, we have a daytime drop-in program for the homeless, which is also open 7 days a week. And what we do in the drop-in program is help people with their basic needs during the day when shelters are closed. So we have shower facilities, we have laundry facilities, people can have breakfast and lunch with us. And for those who are looking for more than basic needs, we have counselors who can help connect the homeless with primary health care, behavioral health care, entitlement programs, housing programs, and shelter programs. One of the things that I really want to stress, because I'm sure that most people don't know this, but Fellowship Place has been around for 60 years. We've had the drop-in program for the homeless since the late 1990s. But in the last year or two, we have just seen an explosion in the number of homeless people coming to the agency looking for service. And I'm sure anyone who lives in New Haven has seen the increase in the homeless that you see on the streets, on the green, other places. Many of those individuals are people that are struggling with an untreated mental illness or a substance use issue, and they, find their way here, fortunately, so that we can help them during the day. But what's really needed is more deeply affordable housing.
Wow. So, Sandy, can you speak a little bit about the career development?
Absolutely. So in the career services, we are working with individuals we get referrals in from a variety of sources. Sometimes clients self-refer, sometimes we get referrals from clinical organizations, and sometimes clients come into our homeless program and they connect with us through that program. So we get to know people and we identify not only their previous experience and skills, but also the barriers that are getting in the way of them being able to be successfully employed. And so then we make a plan to target those barriers. It might be something like someone does not have the IDs that they need that are required by an employer. It might mean getting bus passes or learning the bus schedule or how to take the bus. So there's lots of barriers that we're trying to help folks overcome. And then we do a pretty comprehensive assessment and start to target employers who are going to be a good fit for the person's experience and skills.
Wow.
We do a lot around also helping people to try to get workforce credentials, ServSafe certification, which is something that employers in the food industry are looking for, can help a person, be above other applicants and more likely to get a job. OSHA 10, the Guard card. And then we also offer opportunities for people to go back to school, whether it's a short-term training program, whether it's getting a GED, or whether it's going back to school for post-secondary, because, individuals who have a serious mental illness, it often happens in young adulthood. They have their education or their employment interrupted. And so we want to help people get back on track. So we're going to do whatever we can do to help a person get the skills they need to be more marketable to an employer, help them find an employer that's a good fit for them, maybe after they get their education, their credential, or maybe sooner, they're looking for a job sooner, particularly in the case of people who are homeless and, need employment now. And then we're going to help them be successful once they have that job. We're going to help them to maintain that job and think about the future, their career development.
So again, I keep mentioning addressing folks at their first. Do you mind if I use your first name, or you?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're all friends here.
Okay. So a question for you also, Sandy. So what would you say to the employers if you're looking for them to partner with you on? What would you say? What would be the ask?
Yeah, I think that when you're hiring people, and I know as a manager who goes through the hiring process, it's difficult to find people who have the skills that you need. And so I think that we are reassuring employers that we are assessing people, that we are vetting them, if you will. I mean, we want to know from the employer's perspective what kind of candidate they're looking for. And so we're going to look at our pool of individuals to make a match. We don't want to just place and run. We want our people to be successful, and we want employers to be happy with that placement so they come back to us. So I would say that we're doing some of the questions employers might have. We can ask those questions and we can vet people for employers.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you. All right, I'm sorry, do you have something else?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add that sometimes the most important thing that we're looking for in an employer is an employer who is willing to give somebody a chance. Because a lot of the people that we are trying to place in jobs have really spotty work histories. You know, we've sometimes worked with people that could be in their 30s or 40s and have never held a job. And I'm sure that if an employer looks at their application and notices that they have such a spotty work history, they might just put that application in the no interview pile. But because we are involved and we try to do the advance work with the employers, we are looking for employers that have jobs to fill and are willing to give people a chance. Even though they may have a very spotty job history, even though perhaps they've had, you know, a lot of challenges in their life, whether it be a criminal record or time in a hospital, a long-term hospital for mental illness, or perhaps they've been homeless for a long time. It's all about giving people a chance so that they can become more independent.
And I would just add to that I think it's also part of our job to help people be able to explain to an employer why, you know, what they're doing in their life right now. You know, people sometimes have a criminal justice background, and if you just focus on that, you're not going to hear from the employer. But if you're able to say, you know, these are the things that I'm doing to change my life around. And so part of the work that we do is coaching people on how to explain gaps in work history, criminal justice background, that kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just going back to some of the things I have experienced, just speaking to folks that are trying to, you know, those second chance opportunities and the barriers they run into. And it's so unfortunate because I'm sure the majority of us have had those challenges in some way. And to give folks a second chance to be successful and live a great life is it's very important. William, I would like to speak to if you could speak to some of the history of the fellowship, please.
Okay. I'm a retired psychologist and retired psychology professor from Southern Connecticut State University. So I really do understand the nature of the clientele that Fellowship Place works with. Even if our clients were to see an outside therapist or an outside medication provider once a week, and many of them don't see a therapist or a medication provider that often, every several weeks, every month is much more common. But even if they were to see a medication provider or a therapist once a week, the question that I ask is, what do they do with the other 167 hours a week? And it's not therapeutic to be alone, to be in your own place, to have the opportunity perhaps to get into your own head too much. And what Fellowship Place offers is a comprehensive day program where our clients can come 7 days a week to socialize, to engage in active recreation, to be involved in dance and music and creative writing and art, and to be involved, as Sandy said, in the possibility of employment or going back to school. We are a comprehensive day program that fills that void of what do you do the rest of the week.
That's amazing. And again, these are the things that I want folks to realize what's available there. And you talk about, I'm thinking about right now, I call it the fire within. on so many occasions, you know, firefighters throughout the country, they always think about the physical fire, but they're not thinking about the psychological and mental challenges that are out there. And unfortunately, a lot of folks don't want to deal with it, you know, and I'm sure you've seen it at the university there. And these services, again, are so important. And I just encourage folks, don't be afraid. I'm just thinking about it. A few months ago, I'm going to give you a great example about the fellowship place. I received a call from a friend they live out of state, and one of the family members had an issue. I reached out to Mary and said, can you help these folks? And can you help this person? I think the next morning I received a call from them, and they said, she's, you know, Mary, she's helped us, and we appreciate the services. But just things like that, you think they might be a small issue, but ultimately you talk about saving souls and saving lives and putting people in a better place, especially when they're homeless, the families out of town. These things are important. So when we collaborate, we partner with other folks, we can make a difference in the lives of many. So again, thank you for that. But these are the type of services, you know, you hear about different programs, but I've seen and witnessed what the fellowship place has done. And again, it's so important that this type of work is continued and supported. My next question is partnerships. Currently, what partners, who are you working with? Over the years, again, I've worked with, in my community stuff, I've worked with sororities, fraternities, because they do a lot of community work. So I'm just putting this out there too as a challenge. You know, here's a place right there on Elm Street, and we could utilize, you know, these partnerships. So if you could speak a little bit about partnerships.
Yeah, I can do that. So one of the things that I'm really fond of saying is that we can't do the work that we do and serve the number of people that we serve. We serve about 1,000 people a year now without partnership. So it really takes a village to meet everybody's needs. And we have a variety of partners. We have clinical partners. That would be the psychiatrists and the clinicians who refer people to us who need our services, and who then work with us to make sure that those individuals are, you know, stable and doing well. We also have employer partners who hire our individuals that are looking for work. Probably we have a couple of really significant employment partners, and that would be Town Fair Tire. They hire a lot of our people. And then we also work with a food service company called Whitson's, which provides the meals in all of the Hampden public schools, and they've hired a lot of our people. Then we also have partners who donate either money or services or supplies to the agency that we are in desperate need of. So just for an example, you know, many of our people are first-time income tax filers because they've just gotten a job for the very first year. And we work with Yale students who have been trained by the IRS, who come on campus and run 2 income tax preparation clinics each tax season, where our folks can come in and get their income taxes completed for free. So that's a tremendous service. We also have a number of churches and synagogues that provide personal hygiene products and laundry supplies for the agency. And let me tell you, this is a big, big need. If anyone out there is listening and wants to help and is looking for a service project, we cannot keep up with the demand for soap, shampoo, conditioner, body lotion, feminine hygiene products, laundry supplies. This is all because of the tremendous increase in the number of homeless people that we are seeing. And we, you know, if we had to go out and purchase all of these supplies, we would have to shut down pretty early in the year. So we really rely on donations for all of those supplies. Just an interesting fact, I mentioned before that we're open 7 days a week. We have 14 people a day who are taking showers here. We have 4 people a day who are doing their laundry here. So when you think about it and do the math, that's a lot of shampoo, that's a lot of soap, that's a lot of laundry. So that's something that we really could use help with, and more partners around that.
That's amazing. So again, folks, if you hear these supplies are definitely needed. So if there's anything you can do, please reach out to the Fellowship Place or myself, and let's make it happen. Again, they're doing great work, and they've supported a lot of folks out there. Every day when I drive throughout the state, I mean, you see so many homeless people, and it just seems like they're younger. I'm seeing a lot of young folks out there. And do you have any data pertaining to the demographics of the homeless? Or
You're absolutely right. There are more and more young people that are homeless. Oftentimes, these are young people that are fleeing some sort of domestic violence situation or human trafficking situation, or people that are aging out of the Department of Children and Families system. And we're very fortunate here in New Haven. There's a wonderful organization called Youth Continuum, which provides a lot of services for the young adults that are facing homelessness. What we're seeing here at Fellowship Place is a tremendous increase in people over the age of 60 who are homeless. So during the first 6 months of this fiscal year, which started on July 1. So the period I'm talking about is July 1 through December 31st, 2023. We saw 95 individuals who were homeless, who were over the age of 60. And the oldest one that we were working with was 83 years old. And a lot of these people not only struggle with untreated mental illness or a substance use issue, but because of their age, they are also struggling with a variety of physical health problems. And we sometimes have had up to 3 people here at one time who are in a wheelchair or who have walkers, canes. And, you know, the way we're set up here at Fellowship Place, the administrative office where my office is located is right next door to the drop-in program for the homeless. So I see them every day. I get to know their struggles, and it's very, very heart-wrenching. I can't put it any other way, to see somebody who's 70 or 75 who is sleeping outside because we don't have enough shelter beds, and is here in a wheelchair, hoping that they'll be able to have breakfast, have lunch, maybe get some laundry done. It's a tough situation.
wow, that's disheartening to say the least. I didn't realize, that folks over 60. I can't imagine them being in a place like that. When we talk about, not only homelessness, but we talk about hunger issues, just folks starving, literally starving in our communities. If anybody could elaborate on that.
So we serve Monday through Friday, we serve 3 meals a day. And on Saturdays and Sundays, we just do breakfast and lunch. There's been a tremendous increase in the demand for meals Again, it's primarily because of the increase in homeless people coming to the agency. But on average, last year, and I think it's going to be the same for this year, which will end on June 30th, because that's the way our fiscal year goes. We are providing about 60 or 65,000 meals a year, all free. We partner, of course, another partner with the Connecticut Food Share, which is what the food bank is called now. And they provide a lot of free food for us, and free supplies for us. But we also have to purchase food when we, can't get what we need from the food bank. We purchase food from local vendors. So we have a full-time chef on board, and he is assisted by a really great part-time person, and they prepare all of the meals every day. And for the homeless, the big issue is that they are either sleeping outside, staying in a warming center at night. Naturally, they don't have any resources to cook for themselves. But for our other clients, the clients who come to the clubhouse or the day program that Will was talking about, many of them, if they were home alone, probably would not cook for themselves, because they don't have the energy, they don't have the skill, they don't have the money, they're just too depressed to do it. So when they come out to our day program, where they get to sit down and enjoy a meal with their peers, with people who are facing similar challenges, the meal not only takes care of their physical needs for nourishment, but it also becomes very helpful and therapeutic for them in terms of breaking down some of the isolation that they would be facing if they were home alone.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm thinking about, I've spoken to a few people, and they weren't, some folks, not many, but they weren't really sensitive towards the folks they see. They see them, they say, oh, they're young enough to go to work, but they don't understand depression and how it affects you mentally, physically. Many times I had to address them and say, look, if you're depressed, your family is no longer, here. They're not here. You lost some loved ones, especially during this pandemic. A lot of folks have lost their loved ones. You just give up. That's what you're seeing. And then you talk about drug addiction and all those. Everything's not a drug and alcohol, And then, unfortunately, you guys know better than me. When depression sits in, that's where a lot of them reach for. They reach for those. So, William, I know you've seen a lot of that at the schools. I've responded to numerous calls to the schools where young folks were, they were depressed. They weren't getting the grades that they were expected to get. Unfortunately, you have suicide. So there's so many things we want to help them before they get to that place. Because I'm sure being out there lonely on the streets, hungry, depressed, is challenging, to say the least. So I just would say to people, be a little bit more sensitive towards folks when you see them like that.
Absolutely. There was just an article in the newspaper a week or so ago that the universities in Connecticut are now providing food pantries because many of their students are what we call food insecure and don't have enough food. I myself had students at the university who were living in their cars. I don't think we realize the widespread nature of these issues. The university has a counseling center, and they are just at times overwhelmed with the number of students who are suffering from some kind of mental health issue. But I wanted to make one other point about Fellowship Place. We start wherever the client is. We give them the process of choosing the kinds of services that they want. But for example, a client may come in simply to have lunch and sit down at a table with other clients in what we call the clubhouse. And then there's some conversation. And then they hear from that other client, oh, I'm also part of an art program here. Or while they're having lunch, the Fellowship Place band might play, and they say, oh, you also have a band, or there's a dance group, or there's a drama group, or there's a writers group. And then they have the opportunity, if they wish, to meet with case management services. And the case management services might, if they are interested, direct them to Sandy's program. But we start where the client is and then give them agency to choose from this large menu of services that we offer them. And I don't want to use the word it's a hook, but there is a hook. Come in for a meal and then sit and spend the afternoon, have a conversation, see what else we offer. And that's what so many of our clients do. The folks who come to the homeless program sometimes come in simply for a meal or simply to take a shower or do laundry. But if they come often enough, we will provide them with other services should they choose those other services as well. So I think that that's an important thing to realize as well. We can provide for so many of the services that they might need, given the opportunity, given the chance.
Wow. That's it's like you mentioned that, and I just want to. I attended an event last week. The Higher Heights put together educational event, and the issue you just mentioned about students living in cars. They can't afford the the living dorms and in the mail plan. Just the challenges they had. A young man spoke, about the challenge. He was able to get through it, but he was able to get through it because other folks helped him. But that's an issue that I don't think anybody even thinks about is, these students striving to, their education and then have to worry about food or hunger. So, I mean, again, the services that are provided, how are folks, how do they find out about the services provided at the Fellowship Place? Who do they contact?
So, variety of ways. We receive a lot of referrals from the Hill Health Center, the Connecticut Mental Health Center, and other mental health service providers in the community. What's becoming more and more apparent, though, is that a lot of people hear about us out on the street. So they hear about it from an outreach worker, a police officer, someone else who is struggling or homeless. And the word just gets around through word of mouth, and people just show up at our door. We also, like the situation that you talked about earlier, Gary, sometimes we have family members who will pick up the phone and say, I'm really, really worried about my son, my daughter, my niece, my nephew. Can you help us? So really is through a variety of ways. One of the things that I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about this morning is stigma. Because even though there are a lot of wonderful services like Fellowship Place and other service providers throughout New Haven and in the state that can really help someone who's struggling with mental illness, very often stigma gets in the way of people reaching out and taking advantage of the services that are available. And there has been progress over the last few years, but many times people are reluctant to come to a place like Fellowship Place because they don't want to be labeled as crazy. They don't want to be labeled as a drug addict or somebody who's mentally ill because they're afraid of what other people will think of them if they get that label. So one of the things that we're really interested in doing at the agency, and I think forums like this help us, is to get the word out that, you know, no one chooses to have a mental illness. Mental illness is like any other illness, whether it be cancer or heart problems or lung problems. We don't choose to get cancer. We don't choose to be mentally ill, and that people who are struggling should feel comfortable reaching out for help. Just like they may go to the walk-in clinic or to a doctor when they think they have the flu, if they're feeling depressed, if they're anxious, if they're feeling paranoid or hearing or seeing things that are not there, it's not their fault, and they should reach out and get help and take advantage of the services that we offer here at Fellowship Place and the clinical services that are available at places like Hill Health and Connecticut Mental Health Center. Mental illness is pretty, it's more prevalent than probably people know, but 1 in 4 Americans are impacted in some way by mental illness. And the latest numbers that I've seen say that more than 1/3 of those people who should be getting help are not getting help because they're afraid of being labeled.
And it's very, mental illness is very egalitarian. It doesn't discriminate on the basis of age. It doesn't discriminate on the basis of race. It doesn't discriminate on the basis of financial status. It doesn't discriminate on the basis of gender. It is egalitarian, which is an interesting way to describe that.
Wow. Yeah, that's Sandy, if you could just talk about some of the things you do in your...
Yeah, sure. So when someone is has been admitted to our program, we're going to help them put together a resume. We're going to help them to get certifications. We're going to help them to get interview clothes or work attire. We give out bus passes if a person needs it. And then we will go out to meet employers and or to, on our own, we'll connect with employers to advocate for a person. Sometimes we go out with a client to connect with an employer. We'll join interviews if we can be supportive and the person wants that. We'll transport people to interviews, take them to the first day of work. Once they're employed, we're gonna check in frequently initially, and then fade out as a person becomes more independent. You know, have you gotten feedback from your supervisor? I have one of those employers that Mary mentioned, who I, you know, at least once a month, I'll send out an email and ask how the folks placed there are doing. The employer will give me feedback. I'll share that feedback with the individuals I work with, so they stay, you know, on task and they do well. Sometimes really small things come up, like somebody's using their personal cell phone during work hours, and so I'm supporting the employer and I'm supporting the client so the person does well on the job. And in the education program, we will help people apply for the free federal financial aid. We will give them a tour of the college. We will meet with academic advising. We'll help to get academic accommodations. But I think the really important thing we do is sort of be accountability coach for people, where, you know, how'd you do on that project? Do you need help? Do you know how to do an oral presentation? How are your study skills? Can we talk about that? How was your grade? So keeping people on task, so those individuals that we were talking about earlier will do well and will finish their term. And the majority of the folks that we work with do finish their education term. I would say upwards of 80% of the folks who we're supporting in the supported education program complete their term. So those are some examples, Gary.
That's, you know, again, that's amazing. Again, these are some of the things that I'm sure folks aren't aware of. So again, whatever we can do to assist Fellowship Place, let's help them out. Another thing I wanted to mention too, that I remember when I first toured the place, the art program. You know, to go in there and see that phenomenal artwork, I was like, wow, I'm a big art fan, and to see, I was really taken back by some of the talent.
Yeah, the art program is one aspect of what we call the expressive arts program. So in the expressive arts program, we have art groups, music groups, writers groups, and we also have a dance group. And certainly the art is probably the biggest one of all of those sort of subgroups, but we never have to spend any money on decorating our walls here at Fellowship Place because our artists are always busy and always creating new art. And we find that whether it be art or writing, that those expressive arts can be very, very therapeutic. Many of the people that we serve sometimes have a very difficult time expressing themselves. And even when they're meeting with one of our caseworkers or they go in to see their psychiatrist, you know, they'll answer questions in like one word answers, you know, like, okay, how are you doing? How are things been since the last time we saw you? Okay. You know, they just have a hard time really sharing and articulating what's on their minds, but sit them down with something creative, and very often people can just, you know, let it all out in an essay in writers group or in a piece of art. So we love the expressive arts. We've been offering expressive arts groups since the very beginning when the agency was first formed in 1960, and the programs have just grown over time. In addition to the art, I think it was Will who mentioned that we have a band that has formed, and they entertain us at all of our big holiday celebrations. And we also have a newsletter called The Beacon, which is made up of all of the poetry and essays that people in the writers group put together. And that Beacon newsletter comes out about 4 times a year. So yeah, all of the arts are really big here.
Wow.
Mary, when you mentioned the creative arts program earlier, you talked about partnerships. And so there is also a partnership, a charitable foundation that helps fund some of our creative arts programs. So they have funded the dance program, for example, so that the money needed to do that doesn't necessarily have to come out of our operating expenses, that this charitable foundation provided a dance instructor to us to run a weekly dance program. So we're very indebted to these outside partnerships. I wanted to add one other thing, and then we'll go on. We had talked about, Gary, you specifically mentioned a family member calling the agency looking for help. Many of our clients have the opposite experience, the absolute opposite experience of having lost contact with their families. Fellowship Place then has a Thanksgiving banquet and a Christmas banquet because these folks would not have a family to go to celebrate Thanksgiving, that the clients of Fellowship Place become their families. And Mary, I'm going to tell an anecdote from a couple of years ago. There was a married couple client in the agency, and I think it was the husband who passed away. And Fellowship Place became her family, and she wanted some kind of memorial service to her husband. And we reached out to a community rabbi who came in to hold a memorial service for her. And the clients were extraordinarily supportive, as family would be, because they are this client's family in the absence of the biological family. And that's one of the great strengths of Fellowship Place over the years.
And that goes to when we mentioned the village, you know.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's the village is a place where, you know, folks, we have to step in when the immediate family or family's not there. We become that family, and
That's correct.
and that's, you know, again, that's so important. And again, I'm just taken back. I'm learning right now to sit back and listening. So I appreciate all the input and all the hard work you guys do. I think we have about 10 more minutes. So if we can just each one of you, if you can just briefly on the ask, what we would like to see from our community, you know, some type of engagement. You know, we say in fire Mayday, that's when we're in trouble, we need help. And you know, again, you guys are doing the hard work, so resources shouldn't be an issue. So I just ask that, you know, folks out there, this is important work that the Fellowship Place is doing. These are real challenges, and we really, really need to pay close attention to what's happening there. There's so much talent in the Fellowship Place, and if you get a chance, give them a call. You know, take a walk through and see what way you know your organization or your fraternity or sorority could possibly help, or community organizations. So if we can, Mary, if you can start.
Yeah, so I think you hit the nail on the head, Gary. We really, you know, could use more community organizations and service organizations like the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, all of those various groups, church groups, who will help us keep up with the growing demand for hygiene products and laundry supplies. But I want to take my last few minutes to just emphasize that because of the growing homeless population in New Haven, the resource that we need the most of that we don't have is deeply affordable housing. And it's not just a matter of providing affordable housing for an individual who is homeless, because if you just give them housing, chances are they will be homeless again within a year or so, because they won't be able to get themselves organized to pay the rent, follow the lease. You know, they don't know how to be a good tenant. So what we need is housing with support services, like the 4 buildings that Fellowship Place currently runs. You know, the need for housing is great, and we just do not have enough of it to go around. Real estate in New Haven has gone through the roof. It is extremely expensive, and it is difficult to put together financing if you're a nonprofit and you want to do more housing. So we really need to find partners in the real estate world, in government, and other, you know, community organizations that, you know, care about the homeless and don't want to see homeless people out on the streets, but want to see them have a safe place to live, to partner with organizations like Fellowship Place who want to do more housing, but we don't have the financial resources to create the housing given the real estate market these days. So that's the biggest, you know, it's great if we get laundry pods. It's great if we get soap. We need it. We want to work with people around those issues. But we really, the biggest resource that we need is more deeply affordable housing with support services.
Mary, we house how many folks?
Right now, we have 4 apartment buildings, and we're housing a total of 45 people in those 4 apartment buildings.
And we could easily double that if there was facility.
Absolutely. We have probably 60 or 70 people a day who are homeless that are coming to Fellowship Place for daytime services.
So what happens to those folks when after they leave the Fellowship Place?
So if they're lucky enough to have a bed in a shelter, they go back to the shelter.
Mhm.
Most, however, are not lucky enough to have a bed in the shelter. So they are either sleeping outdoors or staying in a warming center. Unfortunately, the warming centers are scheduled to close at the end of this month, which just means that there will be more people out on the street. If they're lucky, they may have a friend or a relative that may take them in for a day or so. But for the most part, these folks are just really leaving here and wandering around in the evening hours, trying to find a safe place to rest and to be in the overnight hours.
Thank you. Sandy, we have a couple minutes left, and
Yes. So if I have an ask, it would be, I would love to hear from employers who could tell me what they're looking for, what type of candidate, what type of skills, and give the agency the opportunity to screen clients to look for someone who would be a good fit for what the employer is looking for. And I think, Gary, what you're hearing is, the two most important things for the individuals we serve: a place to live and a job.
Well said, Sandy.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. And very quickly, my ask would be if people could advocate to our state legislators that agencies, nonprofit agencies like Fellowship Place need help and support from the state. So contact your legislators and ask them to support all of the state's nonprofit agencies.
Wow. Yeah. Well, folks, you've heard it all. This was very informative. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for your input. I encourage everybody to, all the different organizations out there to please help with our efforts here. And I know we have an event coming up this week. If someone want to give the information pertaining to the upcoming event.
Sure, I'll do that. There are still tickets available. We have our annual fundraiser on Thursday night. That's April 4th from 5:30 to 8:30 at the Elm City Club. We will have some nice small bites, drinks, and music provided by the Inspire Jazz Band. We've got a live auction with some really great experiences. We have Red Sox tickets. We have a house in Palm Springs, a house in France. We have a stay in a really nice hotel in Boston. We have a spa package, paddle boat cruise. So lots of great things for people to bet on. And there are still tickets available. Tickets are $150 a person. And if you're interested in coming, we'd love to have you be with us on Thursday night. And you just need to call the agency at 203-401-4227 and ask to speak with Melissa, and she can take your order for a ticket.
And our website for people who want to go and look and explore more, fellowshipplace.org. Simply fellowshipplace.org.
Great. That's wonderful. So again, I just want to thank you and hope to see the folks Thursday at the event. Again, the Fellowship Place, they're doing some phenomenal things, and we needed to support them. We definitely need to support them. I know there's a lot of artists out there, a lot of musicians, maybe can stop by and do a little music for them or come up with something. And again, I'm just so taken back by this and humbled. Keep up the great work, and thank you. Thank you for your services. And
thank
again,
you, Gary.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was a pleasure, Gary. Thanks for giving us this opportunity.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Harry and Tom. And
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5